Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us on today's Game Day segment will be beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press. Let's get it started as we always do with my view from Section 17. I was hoping the Michigan State game was an aberration. After Saturday's loss, I know it wasn't. We are a young team that has issues on both sides of the ball. This is now officially a rebuilding year. I think that is crystal clear to all of us after 3 weeks. The staff has a lot of teaching to do, and they have to build or restore confidence with this youthful team. They are teetering right now, and there is not one easy game on this schedule. Most of the media and fan talk right now revolves around Jim Harbaugh and his future at Michigan. When you lose 2 games in the fashion we have in the last 2 weeks, and it's year 6 under his direction, that's understandable. I think we just have to play it out, though. There will be plenty of time after the season to discuss if more time is needed for this program to develop or if changes are needed. The reality is we are nowhere near where most of us thought we would be at this stage of the Jim Harbaugh era. It's frustrating because we expected to be a team that reloaded every year by now, not rebuilding or even backsliding. As Orion said during our interview, it is what it is right now. Orion and I taped on Monday morning before Wisconsin confirmed that we would play this Saturday night. We also weren't sure of Aidan Hutchinson's status for the game, and later learned he needs surgery and is going to be lost for the season. A huge blow for our struggling defense. It was a long day Saturday in Bloomington, and if we don't notch it up, it could be a very long night in the Big House this Saturday against the Badgers. Beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press joins us next on this week's Game Day edition of the Michigan Man. So stay with us. Joining us today is beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press to look back at that IU debacle, I guess is the best way to explain it. At the end of the interview, we'll talk a little bit about, hopefully, a Wisconsin game this Saturday night. Welcome back to the show, Orion.
Good to be back, Mike.
Well, it is hard to know where to begin in analyzing Saturday's 38-21 loss to Indiana, Orion, but let's try. Starting with that defense, there's so much going on there. The penalties, though, on Saturday, there were just too many and really just killed a defense that's struggling, didn't they?
Yeah, it's tough for a secondary that's struggled when the defense is continually jumping off sides, giving offense free plays. It's hard to see, certain players struggling, especially with penalties, and it seems like the confidence is flagging because of how much they've struggled in the past couple of weeks. I guess I would diagnose it as an overall issue instead of just one player, really. I think there are a few players that you could point out on a defense and say that they're playing really well right now. I think it's just a comprehensive issue. And I'm not sure what the fix is, because they lost Aidan Hutchinson and Quiddy Pay during the game, and we're not sure how long those guys are out for. And Ambry Thomas is not coming back. So I just think that this defense isn't that deep in the first place, and it's taken some big hits, over the past few months. It is what it is at this point. I don't see an avenue for improvement, really.
One of the things when you're struggling in a game is making big plays, forcing turnovers. We had at least 2 dropped interception attempts, and in a tight game where you need a momentum swing, you have to come up with those if you want to stay in games and win, don't you?
Yeah, I would say those interceptions were tough plays. I think the one where Brad Hawkins and Dax Hill both went for a ball, I think that probably would have been an interception. But, the other one, I thought it was a difficult play for Jamal Green to make. And, he had to break up, so you can credit him with making a solid play there. I think the one that really hurt was a pass interference penalty on, I think it was 3rd and 9, third quarter. They would have gotten off the field. Instead, defense stayed on the field, and I believe Indiana scored 3 or 4 plays later and pushed the lead back to 17. I think that was really crucial because if they had gotten off the field there, offense gets the ball back, and the offense had scored a touchdown with relative ease on a previous drive. So I think that was a huge swing in momentum, that penalty right there. And it's tough, because this defense, they aren't playing well enough to withstand mistakes like that. They have to get off the field when they get an opportunity to. And we've seen them struggle getting off the field in 3rd and long situations the past couple of weeks, and that just can't happen. When you get an offense into 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, that's your cue to get off the field and get the ball back.
Well, those 3rd down conversions, Indiana had not been good on 3rd down conversions through the first 2 games, but they torched us over and over. And the one thing with that is, yes, the defense does have to get off the field, but that is mentally exhausting after a while, isn't it?
Not only is it mentally exhausting, it's just, you give the offense another chance to score. It's got to take advantage of that. I feel like every time in football, if you miss an interception, if you commit a penalty that keeps them on the field, chances are the offense is going to take advantage of that. It just feels like that's how the way things go. Tough swing for Michigan and tough couple weeks. They're basically out of the Big Ten race now, and they're playing for the future. They're playing for their pride. They're going to try to be competitive, obviously, and win games, but their postseason hopes and Big Ten hopes are effectively gone.
Well, another thing that's been missing the past 2 weeks is the pass rush. And I know a lot of times Penix was doing the quick drops and getting rid of it. But on other occasions, he just stood in the pocket a long time, too long. Even before Aidan Hutchinson went down, we were just not getting pressure. And the D made Penix look like almost a Heisman Trophy candidate. Again, you just can't have that against any team, letting a quarterback stand back there, scan the field, and throw.
The pass rush and the secondary, they work together. Pass rush has to get to the quarterback quickly to help out the secondary. The secondary has to stay in coverage to help out the pass rush. And I think that's what Michigan is seeing. Like when they're playing man, it seems like the quarterbacks are getting the ball out super quickly. We saw Indiana throw to the flats often early in the game. It seemed like they were checking to a play where they would throw to the running back in the flats whenever they got Michigan in man coverage. And then, there are other plays when they got free plays from the offside penalties, and they were able to throw deep and take shots because of that. And then the pass rush, it really didn't seem that effective aside from when they were running stunts. I didn't see too many guys winning one-on-one matchups out there, and I don't know how many guys are capable of doing that now if Hutchinson and Pay are out. I think those guys are the 2 most consistent pass rushers. But even then, when those guys are getting pressure, the quarterback is still getting the ball quickly out. They're getting close to the quarterback, but they're not getting sacks because I think Michigan had 0 sacks the past 2 weeks combined. So tough, but it's a combination of every factor. Pass rush could get there quicker and more consistently, but coverage, has to hold up too.
I thought coverage was better this week. It was tighter. They were getting the heads turned around both corners. And in several cases, we just did not make a play on the ball, struggling with that now. And I think after 3 games, it's pretty clear everyone's going to attack that secondary. We just have some really big issues. What is the fix? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. They had a cornerback in Vincent Gray who I thought was effective last year, and he played really well. And I'm not sure, what exactly is going on right now, but it seems like it's a confidence thing. And, I saw a clip where I think someone posted on Twitter, but it was, after he made a mistake, his teammate walked over and it lifted Vincent Gray's head up. And you like to see that from teammates, especially with someone who struggled and does seem to be down on themselves. But right now, the coaches have to find a way to infuse more confidence in him. Cornerback is a position where you have to have a short memory because you're going to get beat. Even the best cornerbacks get beat. Last season, Jeff Okudah got beat, but he was able to bounce back. Michigan's cornerbacks, they've gotten beaten before. They were able to bounce back. Right now, they need to find a way to get Vincent Gray some confidence in himself. I thought Jamon Green, after struggling a little bit last week early on, I think he's played pretty well since then. He bounced back during last week's game, and I thought he showed the capability to be a solid corner against Indiana. They were clearly going after him, but it seemed like he has the speed, the athleticism to be there, to be right there in coverage. He had a couple drop picks against Minnesota, and there are some other plays where you can maybe argue that he should have made a play since then, but he's in position, and that's pretty good for a first-year corner, first-year starter. So it seems like he's got plenty of potential. And they have a lot of young guys there at cornerback, and it's inexperienced, and there are going to be some struggles. And I do think that they will figure it out at some point. It could be a long road getting to that point this season.
Don Brown took a lot of heat last week after the Michigan State game for not adjusting in the second half, helping those corners out. I thought he did mix it up on Saturday, but that really didn't make a difference either, did it, Orion?
He mixed it up a lot last week too. I saw a lot of more too high safeties, and I guess I don't know if Michigan really wants to do that, because when you do that, you're taking a guy out of the box, out of the run game. I think the run defense is probably stout enough where they can afford to do that. I mean, I don't know if they have an option because other teams are attacking them so hard in the pass game. But he mixed in a lot of zone coverages, and they got beat up the seam a couple times when I thought they were zone. I'm not sure if that was the linebacker or someone failing to redirect the seam, or if they didn't drop deep enough. I thought Indiana took advantage of zone coverage a couple times. And you got to credit Indiana. Some of those throws are tough. Some of those catches are tough, and Indiana's offense made those plays. Their coordinator saw that and adjusted. A former Michigan quarterback, Nick Sheridan, actually.
Yeah.
So I don't know. And part of that, when you talk about Michigan playing zone coverages, I mean, they have the capability to do so, but you think about the scheme in general. They like to play man coverage, press man coverage, and they're not a primarily zone team. So when they switch to zone, that's not their specialty. So you can maybe make the case that they're not as used to playing zone as some other teams maybe. So that could explain maybe some of the struggles when they switch and try to mix it up. But they have no option. They haven't shown that they can hold up in man coverage consistently, so they have to switch it up.
At this point, you can't put a Band-Aid on this secondary or anything on the defense. There just don't seem to be answers right now. I think maybe the answer is something people don't want to hear. It's a young defense. They've got to play. They've got to make mistakes. It's the only way they're going to get better.
Yeah, and that's really the message for this team. I think they're number 125. It was either 121 or 125 in training production entering this year. That was before they even lost Ambry Thomas and Nico Collins. I mean, it's just a really young team, and they don't have that much depth either at a lot of key positions like quarterback or offensive line or defensive line. I mean, they've just got a lot of youth, and it kind of shaped up entering the season where it looked like this would be more of a rebuilding/reloading season for Michigan. I mean, they just didn't have that much production coming back, and usually that means there are going to be some bumps, some bruises, and a steep learning curve, and I think that's what we're seeing right now. There's talent. I will say I think there's talent on both sides of the ball, but it takes time for that talent to settle in. And right now, they just aren't experienced enough to recover from taking some of these early hits they have in games. They trailed for a lot of the Michigan State game, and I thought they got a little tighter as the game went on in terms of how they were executing. They were down immediately against Indiana, down 17 at halftime. I just don't think they have the capability to come back from such deficits right now. And offensively, they have a lot of talent. They have a lot of speed, but it's just very useful. And I think it'll get better as the year goes on. But they're not at the point right now where they can win a shootout and go out there and just win games by scoring, 49 points against a good team, against a non-Minnesota team. It'll take time for both sides of the ball to progress and develop the season.
Yeah, and what's interesting to watch as the season progresses is who steps up on both sides of the ball really as leaders, and on a young team, that is no easy thing to do. Aidan Hutchinson seems like a leader on the defensive side of the ball. He went down with what Jim said was a significant lower body injury. Have you heard anything about that?
No, but we expect to hear more today when Jim talks, so we'll see.
The defense, as we were well aware for the last week, could not get off the field. When the offense got on, they struggled. in part because we're missing both starting tackles. No way around that. Bottom line, Orion, the O-line just could not get any push, could they?
It's hard to blame them because, like, guys, as you said, it's such a young unit. They were replacing 4 of 5 starters entering the season, and their most experienced player has a high ankle sprain in Jalen Mayfield, and he was out. They had a redshirt freshman starting at left tackle, a true freshman starting at right guard. I mean, it's very useful. And typically, offensive line is a position where it takes some time to both developmentally and physically. They usually redshirt offensive linemen and get them a year to weight room in a couple of years maybe. And obviously, it takes time to understand the schemes and understand the protection and what they have to do out there. It's a very difficult position, arguably the most difficult position on the field. So, I guess this is to be expected. Ed Warner is a really good coach. I don't think this takes anything away from him, but I think what we're realizing is that Minnesota was just really bad, and that this offensive line, like the rest of the team, is still a work in progress.
And it was the second week in a row the running game was pretty much non-existent, and we ran a lot of backs out there. I know I've heard Jamie Morris say this. No one seems to be able to get any rhythm established, and I know that's very complex. It's sort of a mystery to me why we can't just maybe get 1 or 2 backs and let them get a feel for the game. I know when you get 18 carries, it's hard to get rhythm, but it is frustrating to watch, isn't it?
It's tough, but I think they're doing it in the flow of the game. Like I'll give you one example. Last week against Michigan State, there was that drive, I think, that ended a field goal in the first half when Hassan Haskins was running really well. He was getting more than what was blocked from him, and they kept him in the game, and he had 3 or 4 touches on that drive alone. And Jay Harbaugh said last week on the Inside Michigan Football radio show, he told John Jansen that, when a guy has a hot hand, they will look to get him more touches, in the flow of a game. But they're not going to not play all 4 of these guys because Jay Harbaugh believes all 4 of them have a different skill set. And, based on what I've seen, I think you could say that's probably true. These 4 running backs are pretty different in a lot of ways, and it might be worth playing all 4 of them within a game. I do think that they are on the lookout to see if any one back starts to have a hot hand and starts to do well within a game, and that specific back would get more touches. It's the deepest position on offense, I think. They had the most returning production there, and it personally, I think it makes sense to me why they're playing all 4 backs. If you feel confident in a position group, that's the one spot where I think you can realistically rotate that heavily. At receiver, if you have a number 1 guy, you don't want to take him off the field. Obviously, if it's quarterback, you don't want to really rotate. Offensive line, you don't want to really rotate. But running back, you can to save wear and tear. Because I think last year they went too far in the other direction. They weren't deep enough. And you saw Zach Charbonnet get 33 carries against Army in week 2, and that seemed to sort of hurt him the rest of the season in terms of his health. He didn't look the same for a couple weeks after that, and his workload was down right after that too. So I think rotation's good at that running back position. I think it makes sense given who they have, and I think you'll continue to see it going forward.
Well, Joe Milton has a lot on his shoulders for a young quarterback. He's looked really good, and he struggled a bit through 2 picks last week. But your overall impression through 3 games of his play, Orion?
I think that he is improving. I think he's on the upswing. I think that the Minnesota game, he wasn't asked to do too much. I think he was throwing, at line of scrimmage, screens, short completions. Running game was working. He played well. He did well with what he was asked to do in that game, but he wasn't asked to do a lot. I think past 2 games, he's been asked to win the game for Michigan. I don't think he's at the point in his career where he can do that yet. He's not that type of player yet. But I think he's still shown some promising flashes. You look at this past week, he made a couple of difficult throws. There was a touchdown to Cornelius Johnson on a post. I thought that was a quality throw. Another touchdown on the fade to Ronnie Bell in the end zone. That was a difficult throw. I think he put it in a good spot for Ronnie Bell to make the play. And then there was a couple plays where, I thought he made a marked improvement in terms of, keeping a play alive. And he left the pocket or clung pocket. But instead of tucking the ball and looking to run, I think he kept his eyes downfield and he was looking for receivers. And he had a 52-yard pass to Ronnie Bell off of such a play. A couple other completions that moved the chains by keeping a play alive with his feet. So you're seeing week-to-week improvement there. Obviously, there were some mistakes. He missed an easy touchdown to Bell. I think he's still learning, how to put touch on deep balls. The first drive, there was that pass to Cornelius Johnson where I think he hung it in the air a little too long. That's probably one where he has to fire it in before the safety gets there. So he's still learning, when to put some mustard in the ball and when to take some heat off of it. And then obviously he's learning, how to read defenses. He's still staring down receivers sometimes, still forcing the ball in the tight windows of coverage sometimes. But these are all things that you might expect from a first-year starting quarterback, and I think he'll get better the season continues. I think he's shown signs of promise. Like with the rest of the team, I have to emphasize it's a work in progress.
Well, if there was anything positive to take from Saturday's game, it was the play of Ronnie Bell, Cornelius Johnson looking really good, stepping up, and Roman Wilson continues to impress. But the drops from Nick Eubanks and Eric All were very costly. The receivers, though, seemed like they were getting more separation this week as opposed to last week against Michigan State. And that is one of the positives I think we can take from the game Saturday.
Yeah, it is a position that I think is probably the most dynamic on offense in terms of speed and the playmakers they have there. And Ronnie Bell has developed into a really good receiver the past couple of years. And I think he has the chops to be a number one option for a good offense. You probably need a few more games for them to continue to develop. There's a lot of youth there. They're playing 2 freshmen. There are 3 guys who are sophomores. It's just a really young unit, and I think its best days are still ahead of it.
Every series, as we saw, was big for the offense Saturday because the defense couldn't really get off the field. After the game, I was getting a lot of emails from my listeners who weren't happy with the play calling from Josh Gaddis. And I'm not sure, given the flow of the game, what he could have done differently to jumpstart that offense. Are you?
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I mean, it's hard to completely abandon the run game. I'm a huge proponent of running the ball, and you've got to try to run the ball because if you don't, it makes you one-dimensional. And even if you are one-dimensional because you can't run the ball, you have to at least try. So, I get what he's trying to do there. One thing that surprised me is it seems like the quarterback run game has gone away the past couple of weeks at times, and I think that could really help them. Just the zone reads, some of those designed quarterback runs. I don't know. I mean, they could attack the edge more. It seems like teams are expecting that too. But the offense just has to make plays at this point. There's things that are open. There's things that are there. Yards that are there. They have to take advantage. They have to avoid getting to second and 13s, second and longs. That's been something that they've struggled with, both in terms of play calling and execution on the field. And they have to do things that can help out Milton. Really, he's been asked to go out there and score a lot of points the past 2 weeks without much help from a run game or other, facets of the offense. And it's just hard. It's a huge burden for him, and they have to find some way to help him out. I'm not sure what it is, I can't sit here and tell you I know what that is. They have to find some way to help out the quarterback.
Well, one thing they do have to do is put the last 2 weeks in the rearview mirror, and I'm sure the staff will tell them that. And this Saturday, we're a primetime game at night against Wisconsin at home. If, in fact, the game is played, we're taping on Monday morning. I think Wisconsin is set in the next day or so to make a determination. I think by at least Tuesday we should know, shouldn't we, Orion?
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking at what they were saying, they had the update Saturday. Cases were down to 14, and then they said there'd be another update Monday. So we'll see. The 14 is 9 players and 5 staff members. So we'll see if that drops at all by today. It seems like it's trending in the right direction. Seems like they're probably on track to play for the game, but obviously you can't really say for sure one way or the other.
Well, they're 1-0. They really beat up on Illinois in their opener and looked very good, especially redshirt freshman quarterback Graham Mertz, who was, I think, something like 20 for 22. If he throws like that, and I'm sure they'll attack the secondary, it could be another long night for those corners.
It could be. I thought it was against Illinois, though. The linebackers really struggled in coverage, and the tight end, Jake Ferguson, had a big day. I think Michigan will have to key in on him. I don't think they have the receivers. I mean, maybe they have an unheralded guy like Ricky White who is poised for a big day, but I think Michigan will have to key in on the tight end. And Wisconsin, obviously, they want to run the ball. That's their whole identity. So it seems like that will be a priority again for Michigan, stopping the run and going from there. So we'll see. I mean, Mertz was out for a long time. He had COVID. That takes away from his development, takes away from his potential growth as a redshirt freshman, first-time starter. So, that could play a role too against Michigan. They could maybe complicate things, show them different looks. Don Brown has a lot of different blitzes. He can throw teams on different packages, formations. So we'll see if Mertz's long-term absence due to COVID plays any role in Saturday's outcome.
And we're not sure any of that's going to be a factor, but Wisconsin started limited practice on Friday, so their offensive timing, you would expect that it's going to be off, and that would be nice for us. Your early thoughts on how that Michigan defense matches up with what we know about the Badger offense?
It really depends on the status of Hutchinson and Tay. I mean, those guys are so crucial to what Michigan does up front. You can rely on them to help stop the run, to win their individual matchups, both in the run game and in the pass game. So a lot of it will be dictated upon what is up with those two guys and their status. I'd probably give Wisconsin advantage right now, just based on what we see from Michigan's defense. But, it's not like Wisconsin has the same offense as they did last year. There's no more Jonathan Taylor, and that's a huge deal. Jonathan Taylor's a dynamic running back, one of the best running backs I've ever seen. And for how good Mertz looked in week one, I mean, he'll be playing at night in the Michigan Stadium, no fans, but, Michigan, I think, is probably better than Illinois. So, I don't think he's going to go 20-21 and throw 5 touchdowns again, regardless of how Michigan has struggled. So we'll see. I would probably give the initial advantage to Wisconsin, but I think it could be closer than many expect.
Well, we have a very limited one-game sample of Wisconsin's defense, but they returned 9 starters from what was a very good unit last year. Not a great unit, but good. But this will, without a doubt, be the best defense Michigan has seen thus far. We're going to have to try to run the ball, no doubt about it, but it is a tall order against this defense, isn't it?
They're probably going to struggle to run the ball. I mean, they brought back their nose tackle, their ends, and that 3-4, who are really good run stoppers. I think Michigan's going to struggle to run the ball. No other way around it. Even if they get back some of the tackles that they're missing, Jalen Mayfield and Ryan Hayes. I mean, tough front to go up against in Wisconsin. I think they're going to have to air it out. I think they're going to have to rely on Milton to make some big plays downfield. So same story these past 2 weeks, really.
Well, I was watching Jim's post-game presser on Saturday, and you saw it. You were involved, and his demeanor was, I don't know, I hate to say it, almost accepting of the loss, it seemed like, but I'm sure inside he is just on fire. At least I hope he is. Part of me would like to see him explode like his old coach used to after a loss, but he just seems oddly mellow right now, doesn't he, Orion?
He's not going to publicly criticize his players.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's a move on his part for all the people who are wringing their hands about him saying the corners are talented and so-and-so is talented and playing well. I mean, he's not going to throw his players under the bus publicly. I think that would be unwise to do anyways. I never understood coaches do that. I don't think there's anything to make from what we see from him in press conferences. It's probably different from what he is with the team in the locker room and practice. So I don't know. I can't really comment on whether he's more mellow now than he was before. I mean, he's toned on his sideline demeanor in some ways. He's not picking up penalties, but I think you still see him fired up. I mean, he was fired up when they threw a flag for what looked to be pass interference, and I think they picked up the flag. But even after they picked up the flag, he was still yelling, chirping at an official. I mean, he's still fiery, he's still passionate. Vincent Gray being a pass breakup, I noticed Jim, celebrating with him, going a little crazy on the sideline, trying to hype up Vincent Gray after that big play. I mean, if people are looking for fire from their coach, they can find it if they're looking in the right spots. I wouldn't necessarily say he's mellowed out. I think he's still competitive. Intensely competitive. So that's what I would say on that subject.
I think a lot of it is he played for Bo, and Bo said in the book that Mitch Albom wrote, Bo mentioned that after a game, when he was talking to the media, if the team did not look good, if they struggled, he pumped them up. If they were winning and winning impressively, he let them have it because he wanted them to keep that edge. And I think that's really what we're seeing from Jim right now.
Yeah, I mean, like it goes back to what I was saying before. I mean, if a player is struggling, I feel like the last thing you want to do is go out in public and say they're struggling. Just what if they hear that and that hurts them even more, tanks their confidence even more. I just don't think that'd be a wise move to do. So I mean, maybe you could make an argument and say that he shouldn't, the program in general shouldn't pump it up every off season and start the hype train. Maybe you have an argument there, but I don't see a need to publicly criticize players. I've just never understood coaches who go out and throw their own player under the bus after a loss or after a win or before the season starts. I just never understood that strategy. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have to say on the subject. I just think that it's a calculated move on his part, and I don't really see any disagreement in what he's doing.
Well, a final question for you, Orion, and this is one I seem to get the most of right now from my listeners asking me, is this Michigan team as bad as it's looked the last 2 weeks, or is the inexperience and the youth of this team the major factor in all of its struggles right now?
It's useful, but I just think they aren't that good. It's a combination. I mean, it's a combination of, this is not the most talented team he's had. I think you could probably say it's the least talented team he's had since he's been here, Jim Harbaugh. They lost 10 guys to the NFL draft last season. A couple more weren't even drafted, but were multi-year starters in Shea Patterson and Levert Hill. So they lost a lot of ties from a veteran team, a lot of talent. So there's a talent drain, experience drain. I mean, it's going to take some time to figure out what type of team they are. And even if this was a normal season, even if they had spring ball, even if they had a normal off season, I think you would have probably seen the same struggles. I mean, it's a young team. They have young talent. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they still recruit better than most of the teams still see in the Big Ten, but it takes time for that talent to get up to speed. You're never going to see true freshmen, redshirt freshmen just playing better than seniors. I mean, I think you could argue Indiana has a lot of better talent, and you could say that. I mean, maybe they haven't recruited better than Michigan, but you could say they're probably more talented than Michigan right now just because of all the experience they have, all the proven contributors they have. So, I mean, it is what it is. I thought they would struggle this year. I picked them to go 4-4. I think you're seeing them struggle in many of the ways that people expected, and in some ways that people didn't expect. So it's just going to be that type of year. It's a rebuilding year for them. No way around it.
But we have another chance against what we think is a very good team on Saturday night in prime time, so we'll see what happens. With us today on our Michigan Game Day segment has been beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press. Orion, as always, thank you for being gracious with your time, and we look forward to that next visit.
Yeah, I'll talk to you soon. Take care, Mike.
On Quick Hits today, as we mentioned, Aidan Hutchinson suffered a leg fracture on Saturday and is out for the season. It was reported by several news outlets that he will require surgery very soon. This is a huge blow for him and for our struggling defense. Kwity Paye also went down in the game, and we're not sure if he will be ready to play on Saturday. A lot of guys were dinged up against IU, but no other serious injuries as far as we know. Hopefully on Thursday's show we'll have some updates. Thanks again to beat writer Orion Sang from the Detroit Free Press for joining us today. On Thursday's Visitors Edition, we'll hear from Wisconsin radio play-by-play voice Matt LePay, so make sure you join us. That will do it for now. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Have a great Wolverine week, everyone. Until Thursday, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue!